The docking bay of Research Station Omega was unlike anything Admiral Keth Tar had ever seen. The walls were covered with strange symbols and star charts that showed parts of space far beyond the known galaxy. Advanced equipment hummed quietly in every corner, and holographic displays showed data streams that moved too fast for most species to follow. "Welcome to Station Omega," said a calm voice as the investigation team stepped off their shuttle. They looked around in surprise, seeing no one who could have spoken. "I am the station's artificial intelligence," the voice continued. "Dr. Song. Yeji programmed me to share information with any galactic representatives who found this place. Please follow the blue lights to the main briefing room." A trail of soft blue lights appeared on the floor, leading deeper into the station. Admiral Keth Tar motioned for his team to follow, their footsteps echoing in the empty corridors. The station was massive, with multiple levels and countless rooms filled with research equipment. Everything was clean and functional, as if the humans had just stepped out for a short break. The briefing room contained a large circular table surrounded by chairs designed for different alien body types. As soon as the team sat down, holographic projectors activated, filling the air above the table with images of deep space. "My name is Dr. Song Yeji," said a new voice, and suddenly a three-dimensional image of a human woman appeared before them. She was middle-aged, with kind eyes but a worried expression. "If you are watching this message, it means that the galaxy has begun to suffer from our absence. I am sorry for any hardship our departure has caused." Admiral Keth Tar leaned forward, in his chair. "This is a recording?" "Yes," replied the station's AI. "Dr. Song Yeji recorded this message 6 months before the human evacuation. She wanted to ensure that someone would eventually understand what we discovered and why we had to act as we did." The holographic Dr. Song Yeji continued speaking. "For the past 20 years, my team has been monitoring signals from deep space, far beyond our galaxy's edge. What we found there is something that the Galactic Council was not prepared to hear." The images around the room changed, showing telescopic data and mathematical calculations that hurt to look at. Dr. Yelnara, the ethereal investigator, floated closer to examine the numbers. "These readings show movement patterns of massive objects in intergalactic space," she whispered. "Correct," said Dr. Song Yeji's recording. "We discovered a fleet of ships approaching our galaxy. Not just any ships, but vessels of enormous size and unknown design. Our calculations show they will arrive in approximately 8 months from the time this message was recorded." Security expert Ziktra clicked her mandibles nervously. "How large are these ships?" The holographic display zoomed in on one of the approaching objects. The scale was difficult to understand at first, but then comparison markers appeared. Each ship was larger than most moons, with weapon systems that could destroy entire star systems. "We estimate the invasion fleet contains over 10,000 vessels," Dr. Song Yeji continued. "Each one is capable of sterilizing planets and harvesting their resources. We have also detected signs that this is not the first time such a fleet has visited our galaxy." Admiral Keth Tar felt his blood turn cold. "What do you mean, not the first time?" The display changed again, showing archaeological evidence from dozens of different worlds. "My colleague, Dr. Lim Jae-hyun, discovered ruins on 17 different planets. These ruins all show the same pattern: advanced civilizations that suddenly vanished, leaving behind only empty cities and evidence of massive orbital bombardment. Images of dead worlds flashed before the investigation team. Ancient spaceports with no ships. Cities built for millions of inhabitants but containing no remains. Technologies that had been deliberately destroyed by weapons far more powerful than anything the current galaxy possessed. The pattern repeats every 50,000 years, Dr. Song Yeji explained. A great fleet arrives, harvests the galaxy's resources and most advanced species, then disappears back into intergalactic space. The few survivors rebuild over thousands of generations, only to face the same fate when the harvesters return. Dr. Yelnara's form flickered with distress. But why did humans not tell the Council about this threat? We could have prepared defenses, evacuation plans, something. The holographic Dr. Song Yeji seemed to look directly at her, though it was only a recording. We tried to present our findings to the Council 3 years ago. The response was panic, denial, and political chaos. The Helios Federation immediately began building massive weapons, claiming they would fight the invaders. The Dark Star Alliance accused us of creating a false threat to gain power. The Merchant Coalition tried to profit by selling protection services to terrified worlds. Admiral Keth Tar remembered the recent war that had broken out between the Helios Federation and Dark Star Alliance. Now he understood that it had started because of fear and mistrust over this very threat. Within 6 months of our first report, Dr. Song Yeji continued, 12 different species were on the verge of civil war. Trade broke down. Scientific cooperation ended. Some worlds began attacking their neighbors, claiming they needed resources to build defenses. The galaxy was tearing itself apart before the real enemy even arrived. The room fell silent as the investigation team absorbed this information. They could easily imagine how their various species would react to news of an unstoppable invasion. Fleet. Fear would lead to anger, anger would lead to war, and war would make them even easier targets for the harvesters. So we made a difficult decision, Dr. Song Yeji said. Humanity would face this threat alone. We developed new technologies in secret, built hidden bases in deep space, and prepared for a battle that we hoped the rest of the galaxy would never need to know about. The display showed images of massive human shipyards hidden in asteroid, fields, and nebulae, weapons that used principles of physics unknown to galactic science, defensive systems that could protect entire star systems. Humanity had been far more advanced than anyone had suspected. But how could humans possibly defeat such a powerful enemy? Asked Investigator Mordak, his clawed hands gripping the table. Edge. Not defeat, corrected Dr. Song Yeji. Redirect. Our deep space observations showed that the Harvester fleet follows predictable patterns. They are not interested in conquest or territory. They simply harvest resources and advanced life forms, then move on to the next galaxy. Our plan was to make our galaxy appear empty and worthless. Admiral Keth Tar began to understand. The human disappearance was not evacuation, it was bait. Exactly, confirmed the station's AI. Every human in the galaxy relocated to hidden dimensional spaces that we developed using advanced technology. From the Harvester's perspective, one of the galaxy's most advanced species simply vanished. This made the entire galaxy appear less valuable as a target. The holographic Dr. Song Yeji pointed to new star charts showing the predicted path of the invasion fleet. But that was only the first part of our plan. While hidden in dimensional space, human forces intercepted the Harvester fleet at the galaxy's edge. We engaged them in battle using weapons and tactics they had never encountered before. Images of space battles flashed around the room. Human ships, sleek and impossibly fast, darted between massive Harvester vessels. Weapons that bent space-time itself tore through armor that had protected the invaders for millions of years. The fighting was fierce, but the humans were winning. The battle lasted 3 months, Dr. Song Yeji explained. In the end, we destroyed 60% of the Harvester fleet and sent the survivors fleeing back to intergalactic space. Our analysis suggests they will not return for at least another 50,000 years. Admiral Keth Tar sat back in his chair, overwhelmed by what he had learned. Humanity had secretly saved the entire galaxy, while making it appear as if they had simply abandoned it. The war is over, Dr. Song Yeji concluded. It is now safe for humans to return to normal space and resume their lives among you. We hope that the galaxy can forgive us for the deception, but we believed it was the only way to protect everyone without causing the panic and chaos that would have made us all easy targets. The recording ended. leaving the investigation team sitting in stunned silence. Outside the station, the stars continued to shine peacefully, unaware of the battle that had been fought to protect them. Admiral Keth Tar finally found his voice. "When will the humans return?" "Soon," replied the station's AI. "The first ship should arrive within the next few days." The first human ship appeared above Earth on a quiet Sunday morning, 6 months after Admiral Keth Tar's investigation team had discovered the truth at Research Station Omega. The vessel materialized out of empty space without warning, its sleek design unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Within hours, hundreds more ships followed, emerging from what appeared to be tiers in space itself. On the Galactic Council station, emergency alarms rang for the second time in a year. But this time, the sound carried hope instead of panic. Chairman Veltar stood in the main observation deck, watching through the massive windows as human vessels took their positions throughout the solar system. The ships were beautiful and terrifying at the same time, clearly built with technology far beyond what the galaxy had previously seen. "Chairman," reported Communications Officer Telvin, "we are receiving a transmission from the lead human vessel. They are requesting permission to dock." Veltar's 4 arms trembled slightly with emotion. "Grant them immediate clearance, and tell them that the entire council is waiting to welcome them home." The human delegation that entered the council chambers was led by a woman none of them had seen before. She was young, perhaps in her 30s by human standards, with confident eyes and a calm manner that reminded the alien representatives of the humans they had known and missed. Behind her walked several other humans, including some familiar faces that brought gasps of recognition from the assembled delegates. "Honored council members," the woman said, her voice clear and strong through the translation devices, "my name is Moon Juna, and I serve as humanity's new ambassador to the Galactic Council. I bring greetings from Earth and all human colonies, along with our sincere apologies for the hardship our absence has caused." Minister Kixtal, whose 8 eyes had grown dim with exhaustion during the months of economic crisis, practically glowed with relief. "Ambassador Moon, we cannot express how grateful we are for your return. The galaxy has learned much about humanity's true importance during your absence." Moon Juna nodded respectfully. "We are aware of the difficulties our departure created. That was never our intention, but we had no choice. The threat we faced would have destroyed not just humanity, but every civilization in this galaxy." She gestured to one of the humans behind her, a man carrying a metal case. "This is Dr. Kim Min-soo, our Chief Technology Officer. He brings gifts that we hope will help repair the damage our absence has caused." Dr. Kim Min-soo stepped forward and opened his case, revealing data storage devices that gleamed with an inner light. These contain the complete specifications for the infrastructure systems that failed during our absence. We have also included improvements and upgrades that will make your civilizations more self-sufficient in the future. Around the chamber, representatives leaned forward eagerly. The technology that humans were offering could solve years of problems in a matter of months. Furthermore, Dr. Kim Min-soo continued, "we are prepared to share the defensive technologies we developed during our conflict with the Harvester fleet. These systems will protect the galaxy from similar threats for thousands of years to come." Chairman Veltar could hardly believe what he was hearing. "You would share such advanced technology with us, even after we failed to support you when you first discovered the threat?" Another human stepped forward, a woman with silver hair and wise eyes. "My name is Yang Soyeon, and I now serve as Earth's chief representative. We understand the Council's previous reaction to our warnings. Fear makes all beings act in ways they later regret. We hold no grudge against any species for their response to information that was difficult to accept." The chamber erupted in relieved chatter as representatives began to discuss the implications of humanity's return. But Yang Soyeon raised her hand for silence. "However," she continued, "we must address the changes that have occurred during our absence. The galaxy has learned to function without us, and in many ways that is a good thing. We do not wish to simply return to our old roles and recreate the same dependencies that existed before. Minister Kixtal looked confused. But Ambassador Yang, we need human expertise to rebuild our trade networks, our infrastructure, our diplomatic relationships. The galaxy cannot function at full capacity without your species' contributions. Yang Soyon smiled gently. And that is exactly the problem we hope to solve. During our time in dimensional space, we had much time to think about our role in galactic civilization. We realized that by making ourselves so essential to basic functions, we had actually weakened the galaxy's ability to stand on its own. She activated a holographic display that showed economic and social data from across the galaxy. Our absence forced every species to develop new capabilities, to solve problems they had never faced before, to work together in ways they had avoided in the past. These are positive changes that we do not want to reverse. The display showed examples of cooperation that had emerged during the crisis. Zephyrian worlds had learned to grow their own food with help from Quark's agricultural engineers. The Merchant Coalition had developed new financial systems that worked without human banking networks. Even former enemies like the Helios Federation and Dark Star Alliance had begun sharing resources to survive the economic collapse. Therefore, Yang Soyon announced, humanity will return to galactic society, but in a new role. Instead of managing essential systems for you, we will teach you to manage them yourselves. Instead of solving your problems, we will help you develop the ability to solve them on your own. Dr. Yelnara, who had been part of the investigation team, floated forward slightly. But what about the technologies you developed to fight the harvesters? Surely the galaxy needs human protection from future threats. Moon Juna answered this question. The defensive systems we created will be shared with all Council species, along with complete training in their operation and maintenance. We will also establish a new organization, the Galactic Defense Initiative, with representatives from every species working together to monitor for future threats. No single species should bear the responsibility for protecting the galaxy, added Yang Soyon. That burden should be shared by all who benefit from the protection. The council chamber fell silent as the representatives absorbed these words. They had expected humanity to return and resume their old roles, solving problems and managing systems as they had before. Instead, humans were offering something much better, the knowledge and tools to become truly independent. Chairman Veltar stood up slowly, his forearms spreading wide in a gesture of respect. Ambassador Yang, Ambassador Moon, on behalf of the entire Galactic Council, I accept your proposal. We welcome humanity back not as our caretakers, but as our partners in building a stronger, more resilient galactic civilization. Over the following weeks, human ships spread throughout the galaxy, not to reclaim their old positions, but to begin the work of teaching and sharing. An So-Yung arrived on SciFiPrime with agricultural specialists who taught the Zephyrians how to adapt their crystal cities for food production. Kim Min-soo led teams to industrial worlds, showing alien engineers how to maintain and improve the infrastructure systems that had failed during humanity's absence. The process was not always easy. Some species resented having to learn skills they had never needed before. Others worried that humans were secretly planning to abandon them again. But gradually, trust was rebuilt, and the galaxy began to function better than it ever had. Trade networks became more robust because multiple species understood how they worked. Diplomatic relationships improved because conflicts were resolved by trained mediators from many different worlds, not just humans. Scientific research accelerated as species that had never cooperated before began sharing knowledge and resources. Most importantly, the galaxy developed the ability to defend itself. The Galactic Defense Initiative built monitoring stations throughout the Rim territories, staffed by representatives from every major species. Early warning systems watched for threats from intergalactic space, while defensive platforms protected the most vulnerable worlds. On the first anniversary of humanity's return, Yang Soyeon stood before the Galactic Council one final time as Earth's chief representative. She was stepping down to focus on teaching at the new Galactic Technology Institute, where humans and aliens work together to push the boundaries of science. "When we first joined galactic civilization," she said, "humanity was seen as a useful but unremarkable species. When we left, the galaxy learned how much it depended on us. Now that we have returned, we hope the galaxy will become something greater than any of us could achieve alone." Chairman Veltar nodded approvingly. "The galaxy has indeed become stronger, Ambassador Yang. We are no longer a collection of dependent species held together by human expertise. We are true partners, each contributing our unique strengths to the common good." As Yang Soyeon left the council chambers for the last time, she smiled at the sounds of productive debate echoing behind her. The galaxy no longer needed humanity to function, but it was better because humans were part of it. That, she thought, was exactly as it should be. Outside the station, human and alien ships worked side by side, their crews mixed and their missions shared. The galaxy had learned to stand on its own, but it chose to stand together. Kang Dae-ho stared at the data screen with growing confusion. The numbers made no sense. According to his quantum scanner, there should be 13 major species in the galaxy, but the official records only showed 12. He rubbed his tired eyes and looked again. The reading stayed the same. "Computer, run a full system check," he said to the air. His voice echoed in the empty research station floating near the edge of the void sector. "All systems operating normally," the computer replied in its flat tone. Dae-ho was a quantum archaeologist for the Veltar species. His job was simple: study the old ruins and figure out how ancient civilizations lived. But today, something was very wrong with his equipment. Or maybe something was wrong with the galaxy itself. He pulled up the galactic map. 12 species controlled different regions of space. The Morden Empire ruled the core worlds with their advanced technology. The Veltar, his own people, controlled the research sectors with their love of knowledge. 10 other species filled the remaining space, each with their own strengths and territories. But his scanner kept insisting there should be 13. "Show me the quantum signatures from the last survey," Dae-ho commanded. The screen filled with swirling patterns of energy. Each pattern represented the unique quantum fingerprint of a species. He counted them carefully. 12 distinct patterns, just like always. But his scanner detected traces of a 13th pattern that seemed to exist in the spaces between the others. Dae-ho frowned. He had been doing this job for 30 years, ever since the Galactic Council had formed after the Great War. He had never seen anything like this before. 3 sectors away, Park So-jin felt a strange headache coming on. She was working late in the Temporal Engineering Lab on Nexus Station, the Council's main research facility. Her job was to maintain the timeline monitoring systems that kept track of major galactic events. The headache hit her like a wave. For a moment, she saw flashes of something impossible. A blue and green world with vast oceans and tall mountains. Strange creatures with 2 arms and 2 legs, walking upright like her own people, but different somehow. The vision lasted only seconds, then faded. So-jin shook her head and looked around the lab. Everything was normal. The timeline monitors showed steady readings across all sectors. No major temporal events in the past 50 years except for the usual small fluctuations. She tried to remember what had caused the vision, but it slipped away like smoke. Still, something felt wrong. The timeline readings were too clean, too perfect. In 30 years of monitoring, she had learned that real history was messy and full of unexpected events. "Computer, show me the temporal readings from 50 years. Ego," she said. The screen displayed a series of graphs and charts. 50 years ago, there had been a massive temporal event centered in the core sectors. The official records called it the Great Cleansing, a time when the Council had used experimental technology to remove dangerous quantum instabilities from the galaxy. But looking at the readings now, Sojin noticed something odd. The temporal event wasn't just big, it was impossibly precise. Someone had used the temporal cascade device, the most powerful timeline manipulation tool ever created. The device had been destroyed immediately after use, according to the records. Why would they destroy such a valuable tool? Far from the civilized sectors, Lee Min-ho piloted his small ship through the dead space between galaxies. He was a smuggler and a rebel, though he preferred to call himself a freelance redistribution specialist. His cargo hold was full of supplies for the outer colonies, places too poor or too rebellious for the Council to care about. Min-ho had been born in the Outer Rim, where life was hard, and the Council's rules seemed like cruel jokes. He had learned early that the powerful would always try to crush the weak unless someone stood up to them. As he flew through the empty space, his sensors picked up something unusual. A ship was drifting in the void ahead, running dark with no power signatures. Min-ho changed course to investigate. Salvage rights were valuable, and abandoned ships often contained useful technology. When he got closer, his breath caught in his throat. The ship was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was sleek and organic-looking, with curves that seemed almost alive. The hull was made of some kind of metal that shifted color in the starlight. "Computer, scan that vessel," he ordered. "Unable to identify ship design," the computer replied. "Hull composition unknown. Energy patterns do not match any known species." Min-ho docked his ship carefully with the strange vessel. He put on his environment suit and crossed through the airlock. Inside, the ship was even stranger. The corridors were the right size for beings about his height, but everything felt different. The walls had a warm, organic feel, and strange symbols were carved into the metal. In what looked like the bridge, Min-ho found something that made his blood run cold. The navigation computer was still partially functional, and it showed star charts that included systems he had never heard of. According to the charts, there was supposed to be a major star system in the area that the Council called the Terra Sector, but Min-ho knew that space well. The Terra Sector was empty. It had always been empty. Back on Nexus Station, Chancellor Vextari of the Morden Empire stood in the Council chambers looking out at the stars. The other Council members had gone home hours ago, but he remained behind, thinking about the reports that had been reaching his desk. Systems were going dark across the galaxy, not destroyed by war or disaster, but simply fading. Stars were burning out ahead of schedule. Planets were losing their atmospheres. Ancient technologies that had worked for thousands of years were failing for no apparent reason. The scientists called it the silence because it spread without sound or warning. Entire sectors would simply stop responding to communications. When scout ships investigated, they found empty space where civilizations had once thrived. Vexitari had been a young council member 50 years ago when they had made the decision to use the temporal cascade device. The records from that time were classified, but he remembered the debates. There had been a 13th species in the galaxy, one that the Council had deemed too dangerous to exist. The species had been young and primitive by galactic standards, but they had shown disturbing tendencies toward violence and unpredictability. Some council members had argued for containment or guidance, but the majority had voted for complete removal. The temporal cascade device hadn't just killed them. It had erased them from history itself, making it so they had never evolved in the first place. The technology was precise and thorough. When it was done, no trace of the species remained except in a few classified files. Vextari had thought it was the right decision at the time. The galaxy had seemed more peaceful without the dangerous species disrupting the careful balance of power. But now, as he watched the silence spread across the stars, he wondered if they had made a terrible mistake. His communications console beeped softly. A message was coming in from the outer rim, a report about a strange ship found drifting in dead space. Vexitari read the description and felt a chill run through his body. The ship matched designs from the classified files. Somehow, fragments of the erased species were still bleeding through into reality, like ghosts of a deleted timeline. Vexitari closed his eyes and tried not to think about what that might mean. If pieces of the erased species were still out there, if their removal had somehow damaged the fabric of reality itself, then the galaxy might be facing a crisis far worse than anyone had imagined. The silence was spreading, and for the first time in 50 years, the Council had no idea how to stop. Kim Tai-wan received the message from Kang Dae-ho at 3 in the morning. He was sleeping in his small apartment on Council Station Alpha when his emergency communicator started beeping. As the Council's chief archaeologist, Tai-wan was used. 2 urgent calls, but something about this one felt different. "You need to see this." Dae-ho's voice was shaky through the speaker. "I found something impossible." Tai-wan got dressed quickly and took the fastest transport to Dae-ho's research station. When he arrived, he found his colleagues staring at a wall covered with data charts and quantum readings. Dae-ho looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Look at this." Dae-ho pointed to a series of energy patterns on the main screen. "These are quantum shadows from the Veltar archives. They show traces of a civilization that should exist but doesn't." Tai-wan studied the readings carefully. He had spent his whole career learning to read quantum signatures, and these patterns were unlike anything he had seen before. They were complex and layered, showing signs of advanced technology mixed with something else, something organic and unpredictable. "Where did these readings come from?" Tai-wan asked. "Everywhere," Dae-ho replied. "That's the strange part. These quantum shadows appear in archaeological sites across the galaxy. Old ruins, ancient battlefields, even in the foundations of current cities. It's like this missing civilization had contact with every other species at some point." Tai-wan felt a cold feeling in his stomach. He had access to classified council archives that most people never saw. If there really was a missing 13th species, there should be some record of them in the deepest files. "I need to make some calls," he said quietly. Meanwhile, Park So-jin was having the visions more often. They came without warning, usually when she was tired or stressed. She would see flashes of the blue-green world, and sometimes she saw the strange, 2-legged creatures more clearly. They looked almost like her own people, but their skin was different colors, sometimes dark, sometimes light, sometimes in between. They wore simple clothing and seemed to live in large groups. What struck her most was their faces. They showed emotions more openly than any species she knew, laughing and crying with an intensity that seemed both beautiful and frightening. In one vision, she saw them building something massive, a structure that reached toward the stars. In another, she saw them working together to heal their damaged world, cleaning polluted waters and replanting dead forests. They seemed capable of both great creation and great destruction. So Jin tried to research the visions, but she found nothing. In any database, no species matching their description existed in current records. She began to suspect that these weren't just random dreams. They were memories of something that had been lost. She decided to check the temporal readings more carefully. Her job gave her access to timeline data going back thousands of years. If a civilization had been erased from history, there might be traces in the quantum background radiation. What she found made her hands shake. 50 years ago, there had been a massive temporal disruption that affected the entire galaxy. The official records called it a cleansing operation to remove dangerous quantum instabilities, but the energy patterns didn't match any natural phenomenon. Someone had deliberately altered the timeline on a galactic scale. Choi Yu-na was reviewing security reports in her office when the first real evidence arrived. As a former military commander, she now worked for Council Intelligence, investigating threats to galactic stability. The report came from a salvage team that had found something unusual in the outer rim. The team had discovered a derelict space station floating in what should have been empty space. The station's design didn't match any known architecture, and its computers contained star charts showing systems that didn't exist. Most disturbing of all, the station's logs referred to a species called humans that no one had ever heard of. Yuna. Read the report 3 times before she believed it. According to the station's records, these humans had been a spacefaring civilization that had made contact with multiple galactic species. The logs described trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and even military alliances, but there was no trace of humans in any official records. Yuna pulled up the classified files that only intelligence officers could access. Deep in the archives, she found references to something called Project Reset that had been carried out 50 years ago. The files were heavily redacted, but she could piece together enough to understand what had happened. The council had voted to erase an entire species from existence. Namji-ho was studying quantum resonance patterns in his laboratory when he made a discovery that changed everything. As one of the galaxy's leading experts on quantum mechanics, he had been trying to understand why so many star systems were failing. The problem wasn't just that stars were burning out, it was that the fundamental forces holding reality together seemed to be weakening. Gravity was becoming less stable. Electromagnetic fields were fluctuating unpredictably. Even time itself seemed to be running differently in some regions. Jiho had been working on the theory that consciousness itself might play a role in maintaining quantum stability. Some species seemed to generate energy patterns that helped hold the fabric of space-time together. Without enough conscious minds thinking and creating, reality might start to unravel. But his calculations showed that the current galactic population wasn't enough to maintain stability. There should be more minds, more consciousness contributing to the quantum field. Something was missing. When Taiwan contacted him with information about the vanished 13th species, Jiho suddenly understood. The missing civilization hadn't just been another group of people living in space. They had been an essential part of the galaxy's quantum ecosystem. Look at these patterns. Jiho showed Taiwan his research. Every stable civilization we know generates specific quantum frequencies. But there are gaps in the field, missing frequencies that should be there. Taiwan studied the data. You're saying this missing species was somehow keeping the galaxy stable? More than that, Jiho replied. I think they were acting like an immune system for reality itself. Without them, the universe is slowly dying. The 3 researchers, Taiwan, Sojin, and Jiho, began working together in secret. They knew that their discoveries could be dangerous. If the council had erased a species once, they might do it again to anyone who asked too many questions. They started gathering more evidence. Old ruins that showed signs of contact with the missing species. Quantum readings that revealed gaps in the galactic consciousness field. Ancient texts that referred to the young gardeners who tended to the cosmic web without knowing it. Yuna joined their group after discovering that several council members were actively trying to suppress information about the missing species. She brought access to classified military files that showed the full scope of what had been done. The species called humans hadn't just been erased, they had been completely removed from the timeline. But the process had been imperfect. Fragments of their existence still leaked through in the form of ghost ships, quantum shadows, and the spreading crisis called the Silence. We have to tell people, Sojin said during one of their secret meetings. The galaxy is dying because of what the council did. They'll never admit it, Yuna replied grimly. Too many powerful people were involved in the decision. They'd rather let the galaxy die than face the consequences of their actions. But Taiwan had an idea. What if we could prove that bringing back the humans would save everyone? Not just admit the council made a mistake, but show that reversing it is the only way to survive? They began working on a plan to restore the missing timeline. It would be dangerous and probably illegal. But as the silence continued to spread and more systems went dark every day, They realized they might be the galaxy's only hope. The erased species had been called humans, and somehow they held the key to saving everyone. Yoon Sang-min was working alone in his basement laboratory when he first heard the voices. As a temporal physicist, he had been trying to build a device that could communicate with quantum echoes, fragments of erased timelines that sometimes leaked through into normal space. The voices were faint at first, like whispers in a language he didn't recognize. But as he adjusted his equipment, they became clearer. Someone was trying to talk to him from beyond the timeline. "Hello?" He spoke into his communicator. "Can you hear me?" The response came through crackling static. "We hear you. We are lost. Help us. Remember." Sang-min's hands trembled as he fine-tuned the signal. He was talking to ghosts, consciousness fragments from the erased human timeline. The voices spoke in broken pieces, their memories scattered across quantum space. "Who are you?" he asked. We were guardians. We kept the balance. Stars. Stars are dying because we're gone." Sang-min recorded everything and sent it immediately to Taiwan's secret research group. Within hours, Yuna had arranged for him to join their hidden project. They set up a secure communication link in an abandoned station on the edge of known space. Working together, they managed to establish clearer contact with the human fragments. What they learned changed everything they thought they knew about the galaxy. Zhang Hye-ri was the first hybrid consciousness to emerge from their experiments. She had been created accidentally when So-jin tried to boost the communication signal, using her own quantum signature. The process merged So-jin's alien consciousness with human memory fragments, creating something entirely new. Hye-ri remembered things that had never happened. She remembered Earth, the blue-green world from So-jin's visions, and its billions of human inhabitants. She remembered their history, their culture, their unique way of looking at the universe. They weren't just another species, Hye-ri explained to the research team. Humans had a gift. They could see possibilities that others couldn't. Their minds worked differently, more chaotic, more creative. That chaos was exactly what the galaxy needed. She showed them how human consciousness had worked like antibodies in the cosmic immune system. When reality-eating entities from outside, the universe tried to break through, human unpredictability had confused and blocked them. When the natural entropy of space-time tried to pull systems apart, human creativity had found ways to hold them together. Every major crisis in galactic history was solved by humans, Hye-ri said. They usually didn't even know they were doing it. They would just happen to be in the right place at the right time, making the right choice to save everyone. Oh Seok-jin, a philosopher who had joined their group, understood the deeper meaning. The council thought they were removing a dangerous species, he said, but they were actually removing the galaxy's ability to heal itself. The team began working on ways to strengthen their contact with the human fragments. Each conversation revealed more about what had been lost. The humans had been explorers and dreamers, always pushing into new frontiers. They had been peacemakers, who could find common ground between enemy species. They had been innovators who solved problems that others thought were impossible. But the fragments were fading. Each contact weakened them further, as if they were using up their remaining existence just to communicate. "We're running out of time," one of the voices told them during a particularly clear conversation. "The destroyers are coming. Without us to stop them, they will consume everything." Sang-min's equipment detected massive disturbances in the quantum field. Something was moving through the space between dimensions, heading toward their galaxy. The instruments couldn't identify what it was, but the energy readings were terrifying. "What are the destroyers?" Yuna asked the fragments. "Ancient hunger," came the reply. "From the time before time. They eat realities, consume possibilities. We held them back for so long, but now the barriers are weak. The research team realized they were facing two crises at once. The silence was spreading because human consciousness was missing from the galactic quantum field. But something worse was coming. Entities that fed on organized reality itself. Ye began experimenting with temporary restoration. Using her hybrid nature as a bridge, she could briefly bring small pockets of human consciousness back into normal space-time. When she did this, the effects were immediate and dramatic. Dead systems flickered back to life. Failed technologies began working again. The spreading darkness of the silence retreated wherever human consciousness touched it. But the process was incredibly draining, and each attempt left Hiri weaker. "I can't restore them all," she told the team after a particularly difficult session. "There were billions of humans. I can bring back maybe a few dozen before I burn out completely." The team faced an impossible choice. They could save a tiny fraction of humanity and watch the rest of the galaxy die slowly, or they could find another way to restore the entire species before the cosmic destroyers arrived. Taewon had been studying the temporal cascade device that had erased humanity in the first place. The technology was incredibly complex, but he thought he understood how it worked. Instead of destroying matter and energy, it shifted entire timelines into quantum space, making them exist in potential rather than reality. "The humans aren't really gone," he explained. "They're just stored in quantum probability. If we could reverse the cascade process, we might be able to bring them all back at once." But the original device had been destroyed immediately after use. Building a new one would require resources and technology that only the Council possessed, and many Council members would never agree to restore a species they had voted to erase. Yuna had been working on this problem from the military side. "There's a faction of Council members who know the truth," she reported. "They've seen the evidence about the silence and the cosmic destroyers. Some of them are willing to consider restoration, but they need proof that it will work." The team decided to attempt a limited restoration as a demonstration. They would try to bring back one complete human consciousness and show the Council what was possible. If they could prove that humans were the key to saving the galaxy, they might gain enough support to access the technology they needed. Sang-min modified his equipment to handle a full restoration instead of just communication. Hiri would serve as the anchor, using her hybrid nature to guide a human consciousness from quantum space back into reality. The process would be dangerous for everyone involved. They chose their target carefully, a human consciousness that seemed particularly strong and stable among the fragments. The voice had identified itself as someone called Jin Woo, and it had been one of their clearest contacts. "Are you ready?" Hiri asked the quantum space around her. "We're ready," Jin Woo's voice replied. "Bring us home." The restoration process began with a blinding flash of light. Energy readings spiked across all their instruments as reality bent and twisted around them. For a moment, it felt like the universe itself was screaming. Then suddenly, there was silence. When the light faded, a figure stood in the center of their laboratory. It looked like So Jin's people, but different somehow. The features were softer, the expression more open and curious. Jin Woo, the first restored human in 50 years, opened his eyes and smiled. "Thank you," he said in a voice full of wonder. "We thought we were gone forever." But as the team celebrated their success, their instruments detected something troubling. The restoration had sent ripples through the quantum field, and something had noticed. The cosmic destroyers had detected the return of human consciousness. They were coming faster now, drawn by the possibility of a reality worth consuming.